Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine for a second that you are trying to tune a single instrument in the middle of a giant orchestra.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That sounds stressful already.
Right. But every single musician around you is playing a completely different song.
Just absolute chaos.
Exactly. It's loud, it's chaotic, and no matter how beautiful your specific instrument sounds on its own, the overall effect is just this, well, this exhausting, stressful noise. You can't even hear yourself think, let alone play a masterpiece.
Which is exactly how so many of us feel every single day, just overwhelmed by the noise of everyone else.
Yeah, totally. And today we're doing a deep dive into a 2008 philosophical text by an author named Su Feng. And this text claims to have the absolute ultimate cure for that exact kind of noise in your life.
It does. But we should probably warn you, it is not a simple, quick fix kind of cure.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Now, to be entirely clear up front, we have to state our mission here. His cure involves, well, celestial beings, incredibly rigid rules, and basically abandoning modern independence.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
So we are not here to convert you to his spiritual community, which he calls Lifechanyuan. Not at all. We are just acting as impartial guides.
Right, just laying out the concepts.
Exactly. We're here to dissect its central, deeply uncomfortable thesis, which is this unending war between who you are as an individual and the demands of the groups you belong to.
It is a profound and frankly, a very demanding framework for how to live.
Yeah.
Shifting asks us to look at the friction we experience every single day. The burnout, the irritation with our peers, that feeling of being trapped.
Yeah, the stuff we all feel, like all the time.
Right. And he traces it back to a single fundamental conflict. He frames this as the battle between individuality and generality.
Individuality and generality.
Yeah. So individuality encompasses everything that makes you a distinct, unique person. And generality, that's the shared reality, right? The rules and the unifying structure of whatever collective you are a part of.
So basically, me versus the group.
Pretty much. And to truly grasp why this philosophy views modern life as so painful, we have to understand how he defines those two warring forces.
Well, the text actually starts by celebrating individuality in a way that it sounds incredibly modern, actually.
It really does, yeah.
It says that without individuality, life is just pallid. The author uses this beautiful, vibrant image of a garden. He says, if a garden is overgrown with only one kind of flower, it's monotonous. It's just boring.
Nobody wants a garden with just one flower.
Right. But if it is a riot of colors with countless different flowers in full bloom, then it's splendid. The text insists that every person should have distinct characteristics. And it explicitly states you should never force your own habits or values onto others.
Which sounds amazing, right? Like the perfect utopia.
It does. On the surface, that sounds like the ultimate libertarian dream. But wait, if everyone is just a completely wild, unique flower, doesn't the garden just become, I don't know, an overgrown jungle? You need some sort of boundary or fence, right?
What's fascinating here is that the text actually completely agrees with you. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh?
It sounds wonderfully liberating until you consider the physical reality of an unmanaged garden. If every plant just grows however it wants, taking up as much water and sunlight as it desires, the garden destroys itself.
It just chokes itself out.
Exactly. Xu Feng argues that unchecked individuality is fatal to a community. You need a path, you need a fence, like you said, and he calls that necessary boundary generality.
Generality, the fence, got it.
Right. And according to the source material, without generality, a collective of highly unique individuals doesn't form a beautiful garden. They become what he vividly describes as a sheet of loose sand.
Oh man, that phrase, a sheet of loose sand, that really stuck with me.
It's a great visual, isn't it?
It really is. Because when you picture sand, it has absolutely no structure. The grains just constantly grind against each other every single time the wind blows.
The grinding is the key there. Because loose sand has no unifying structure, the grains are in a perpetual state of collision.
Just constantly annoying each other. Basically, the text argues that without a strong generality, like a shared set of rules or a unified purpose, a community is just in a state of constant internal friction. Your energy is entirely exhausted just trying to navigate the clashes with everyone else. You can't achieve happiness, and ironically, you can't even express your precious individuality.
Because you're too busy fighting.
Exactly. You are too busy dealing with the endless trouble of colliding with other people's egos.
Wow. Okay, so to prevent us from just grinding each other into dust, the text sets up a strict, non-negotiable hierarchy.
Very strict.
It states that generality must accommodate individuality. Like, if a collective rule doesn't allow people to be distinct individuals at all, Feng calls that inhuman, cruel, and dictatorial.
Which makes sense.
Right. But, and this is where the philosophy gets incredibly uncompromising, if the two come into direct conflict, individuality must give way to generality.
No exceptions.
Yeah. If there's a standoff between what you want and what the group needs, you have to fold.
And the author takes a remarkably hard line on this. The text views a refusal to yield to the collective not just as, like, a personality quirk, but as a profound moral failing.
It's not just being stubborn.
No, it calls an individuality that refuses to conform a radical morbidity.
Morbidity. That's intense.
It is seen as a symptom of a distorted soul, a literal deformity in the psychological structure of a person. In this framework, insisting on your own way at the expense of the group's harmony is deeply toxic.
It really doesn't mince words at all. You must bend to the group. But, that brings up a glaring question for me.
What's that?
Well, if the ideal state of existence is this perfect, frictionless unity where we all just yield to the collective, why does everyday human life feel so incredibly stressful? Like, if generality is the cure for the loose sand, why are we always grinding against each other at work or in traffic?
That is the million-dollar question, and Feng has a very specific answer for that, and it involves looking at how different realms of existence operate.
Different realms.
Yeah, he categorizes the different types of generalities that govern different worlds. Like, every realm has its own operating system. For example, he defines the generality of the animal society as the law of the jungle.
The strong prey on the weak.
Exactly, to satisfy their desires. That is the natural, unquestioned rule of that specific realm.
But human society operates on a completely different set of rules, right?
Yeah.
The text defines the core generality of the human world as the pursuit of fame and gain.
Aim and gain. Yep.
And points out something fascinating. This human generality isn't a natural harmonic resonance. It has to be artificially maintained by force. Like, to keep humans from reverting to the law of the jungle, we rely on constitutions, laws, armies, and police.
Right, because without those, we'd just be animals. And because the human operating system is maintained by external force rather than internal alignment, it is inherently flawed.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Usually, spiritual texts focused on cosmic harmony strictly condemn things like money, status, and ego, right? They tell you to abandon worldly desires.
Almost always, yeah.
But Zhu Feng's text advises you, as a human living in the human realm, to actually pursue them. It explicitly says that as a person, you should seek fame and gain. So I have to ask, why is a spiritual text telling people to be ambitious and greedy?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it comes down to supreme, almost ruthless pragmatism.
Pragmatism. How so?
Shui Feng is advocating for the path of least resistance. He argues that the generality of human society is undeniably fame and gain. That is the frequency the human world broadcasts on.
Okay, I see.
So if you decide to fight the generality of your current realm, like if you try to completely rebel against capitalism and status, your life will be incredibly difficult. You will face endless setbacks.
I mean, think about someone who tries to live completely outside the financial system today. They spend almost all their energy just trying to secure basic survival.
Exactly. By fighting the current, they exhaust themselves. Zhu Feng argues that if you simply align your individuality with the human generality of fame and gain, your life in this specific realm will actually be smoother.
It allows you to function without constant punishment from the system.
Precisely. However, even while he tells you to play the game, he makes this incredibly dark, heavy diagnosis of the human condition.
Right, the psychological deformity part. He claims that because of how human society is structured, we are innately psychologically deformed.
Yeah. And he traces that deformity back to a structural contradiction in how human beings are forced to live.
A contradiction.
On one hand, modern human society idolizes individual desire. We are taught to want things, to be unique, to acquire wealth. But on the other hand, our actions to fulfill those desires are constantly restricted by millions of artificial laws, social norms, and the threat of police.
It is a massive pressure cooker.
It really is.
We are told to want everything, but the moment we reach for it, a rule slaps our hand away. And the text argues that when our individuality and our desires are constantly blocked by these artificial boundaries, we inevitably get frustrated. We get angry.
Which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, the friction of wanting something but being legally or socially barred from having it leads to hatred, to mistreating others, and eventually to self-harm.
That is the core of the psychological deformity he talks about. The human operating system is inherently stressful because the generality is forced upon us from the outside. We are complying because we fear the police or the law, not because our souls naturally resonate with the rules.
So, if the human world's generality is inherently restrictive, and it's enforced by fear rather than spiritual alignment, what is the way out?
That's the big pivot in the text.
Right. If we are all suffering from this internal friction, how do we fix this deformity? The text proposes a solution, but it is not an easy one. It's what we might call the crucible of collective living.
Yes. Zhofeng asserts that collective life is the ultimate venue to cultivate the way. You cannot fix your psychological deformities in isolation. You have to put yourself into the fire of a community.
And the text uses a very practical mechanism to explain how this works. It calls it pruning.
Pruning, like a tree.
Exactly. It says you must blend into the collective and actively prune away your incompatible individuality, exactly like a gardener would cut superfluous branches off a tree. And it gives this wonderfully mundane, everyday example.
Oh, the sleeping example.
Yeah. It says, imagine everyone in your group is having fun, but you want to sleep. If you complain that they are making noise and bothering you, the text says you are in the wrong. Your individuality is failing to incorporate into the generality.
And conversely, if everyone is sleeping and you want to be loud and have fun, you are equally wrong.
Right. Because you're the one ruining the peace.
You are the stray branch poking out, ruining the shape of the tree. Pruning isn't just about biting your tongue. It's about actively severing your attachment to your own immediate desires for the sake of the room's harmony.
I feel like this is the ultimate roommate test.
Oh, completely.
You think you're a perfectly enlightened, flawless human being right up until you have to share a kitchen.
So true.
When you live alone, your flaws are hidden. The second you enter a collective, every single sharp edge of your personality is just exposed. But, I have to push back on this framework a bit.
Okay, let's hear it.
Because it assumes the collective is always the only path. What if I just want to tap out?
Like, leave society.
Yeah. Monks, ascetics, hermits, they have been celebrated for thousands of years in various traditions for seeking enlightenment and isolation. Can't someone just go be a hermit on a mountain, bother absolutely no one, and reach paradise alone? Calling them morbid feels more like a control tactic than a spiritual truth, doesn't it?
This raises an important question, especially given how much modern culture values independence. But Shui Feng's framework categorically rejects the idea of the enlightened hermit.
Completely rejects it.
Completely. He states explicitly that there is no room in paradise for a lonely ranger. And he defends this using a massive cosmological analogy.
Okay, I love a good cosmic analogy.
He argues that even a star, a brilliant, burning, unique star, must exist within a galaxy. It must observe the gravitational rules and the generality of that galaxy.
So it can't just float off on its own.
Right. If a star tries to exist entirely on its own, ignoring the physics of the universe, it is doomed to destruction. You cannot just pick a few favorite friends and ignore the rest of the world.
So his argument is that isolation isn't enlightenment, it's just, avoiding the test.
Precisely.
If you curate a tiny bubble or go live on a mountain, you aren't actually improving your soul, you just remove the friction.
Exactly. The text argues that the more a person stresses their isolated individuality, the lonelier they will feel and the more distorted their soul becomes.
Because they're never challenged.
Right. If you never rub against the collective, you never have to confront your own selfishness. Isolation is a fast track to unchecked ego. In Shui Feng's words, someone who completely isolates themselves is on the path to becoming devils, monsters, and demons.
Devils, monsters, and demons.
Wow. Yeah, you must learn to live peacefully with the entire collective because the universe itself is a collective.
We cannot be rogue stars. We have to belong to a galaxy. Which brings us to the ultimate cosmological galaxy described in the source material, the Lifechanyuan ideal.
The big goal.
Right. The text points away from the human realm entirely and looks toward these higher spaces of life, which it calls the 1,000-year world and the celestial island continent.
And to understand these higher realms, we really have to unpack the cosmology a bit.
Okay, lay it on me.
The text describes places like the 1,000-year world as higher planes of existence, where life is dramatically extended and suffering is minimized. But the key difference isn't just the scenery, it's the operating system.
Meaning the rules are different.
Exactly. Unlike human society, the generality of Lifechanyuan requires no laws. It requires no armies, no police, and no constitutions.
But wait. Human nature usually defaults to chaos without rules. If you remove laws and police, How does Lifechanyuan prevent itself from devolving back into that sheet of loose sand we talked about? Does the author actually believe people will just naturally fall in line without some sort of psychological mechanism enforcing it?
The mechanism is what he calls the same frequency resonance of soul.
Same frequency
Yeah.
resonance.
In this higher realm, order isn't maintained by threatening people with jail. It is maintained purely by free will, because every single individual in that space has already pruned themselves to vibrate at the exact same ideological frequency.
Wow, like acoustic resonance.
Yes, exactly.
If you have two perfectly tuned guitars in a room, right, and you strike the E string on one guitar, the E string on the guitar across the room will start to vibrate and hum all on its own.
Without anyone touching it.
Right. Nobody touched it, no force was applied. It just vibrates because it is in perfect alignment with the frequency in the air.
That analogy captures the mechanism perfectly. In Lifechanyuan, there are no compulsory measures because everyone is an E string.
They're all tuned to the same note.
Right. They don't need police to tell them not to steal or fight, because their pruned, sublimated souls naturally desire the exact same harmony as the collective.
So, if you manage to perfectly tune your unique flower, your individual soul, to this cosmic frequency, what is the ultimate payoff according to this text?
The ultimate goal is aligning with what the text calls the generality of the universe.
Which is?
Sui Feng identifies this ultimate generality as the Tao, and its core is what he calls the greatest creator. Now, he makes a fascinating point here about the sheer utility of alignment.
Okay.
He argues that every group has a generality. Gangsters have a generality, ants have a generality, wolf packs have a generality.
Right, and if you're in a wolf pack, you better act like a wolf, or you won't survive the winter.
Exactly. You only ever benefit, survive, and thrive by aligning with the group you are in. But for those who choose to align their individuality perfectly with the Lifechanyuan values individuals, the text refers to as Chanyuan celestials, the payoff is absolute.
Absolute in what way?
By perfectly resonating with the Tao, the text claims they rapidly sublimate their life. They shed the heavy, friction-filled human operating system entirely. They break out of the cocoon and become celestial beings.
Wow.
This is how they reach ultimate joy, absolute freedom, and eventually the Elysium world. By yielding completely and willingly to the highest possible generality, they paradoxically achieve the highest possible freedom.
Because they never feel restricted.
Right, because what they want and what the universe wants are the exact same thing.
It is a wild, massive, cosmic framework.
Right.
But so what does this all mean? Like for you, the person listening right now, dealing with the noise of your own life.
Yeah, bringing it back down to earth.
Exactly. Because whether you buy into the idea of celestial islands, the greatest creator, or acoustic soul resonance, the core psychological tension this text highlights is universally relatable.
It really is.
Every single day, you are navigating the exact tension Xu Feng wrote about. Think about the smaller galaxies you inhabit right now. Your office has a generality. Your family unit has a generality. Your friend groups have generalities.
And the question you have to ask yourself is, are you harmonizing with the generality of those groups? Or are you exhausting all of your precious energy through constant internal friction?
Are you refusing to prune your branches because of pride? Are your unpruned branches constantly poking your coworkers or your partner in the eye?
It's a tough mirror to look into.
It is. Are you the grain of sand grinding against the rest of the beach, wondering why you feel so burned out all the time? This philosophy forces you to look at where you are demanding your individuality be respected at the direct expense of the room's harmony.
But taking this text's rules and applying them to our modern reality leaves us with a deeply provocative thought to ponder.
Ooh, what is it?
Xu Feng claims that every community has its own strict generality you must adopt to thrive, right?
Right.
But in our modern hyper-connected world, we don't just belong to one group. We all simultaneously belong to dozens of different groups, often with wildly clashing generalities.
Well, that is the modern paradox, isn't it?
Exactly. You might spend your day in a cutthroat, highly competitive corporate job where the generality is ruthless ambition and profit at all costs. To survive there without friction, you have to align with that frequency.
Be a wolf in the wolf pack.
Right, but then at 5 o'clock, you commute home to a deeply empathetic family unit where the generality is unconditional vulnerability, patience, and support.
That requires a massive psychological paradigm shift in a single day.
It does. So the ultimate question becomes, if you perfectly prune your individuality to match multiple contradicting generalities at the exact same time, does that supreme flexibility make you a master of the human realm? Or by constantly bending your frequency to match whatever room you walk into, do you eventually erase your own individuality entirely?
Wow. If you spend your whole life tuning your instrument to perfectly match a dozen different orchestras, do you even remember your own song?
Exactly.
That's a brilliant, unsettling question to end on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep exploring, keep questioning the structures and the frequencies of your own world, and we will see you next time.